happen without my boys issuing an apology to make it safe for them to get together to have a conversation. The mechanics are the same. See, you always,
You're not
you always
representing
know.
very well.
I listen.
You get me in the wrong place, and I'm just venom and vitriol.
So sometimes you still hate me. It's okay.
The air inside the courtroom was so thick with tension, you could almost hear the weight of decades crashing down. Janelle Brown sat tall, her hands clasped, eyes locked on Kody, the man who had once called himself her husband, her leader, her partner. But today, those titles felt like lies. Every whispered conversation about shared family finances, every sacrifice she made while Kody funneled resources into Robyn's world. It was all about to be laid bare. Gasps rippled through the room as the judge began to speak, his words hinting at a decision that would change everything. There was talk of hundreds of thousands of dollars, of years of hidden favoritism, of trust that had been shattered beyond repair. I'm Sarah, and this is TLC Sister Wives Daily. Welcome back, friends. If you've been following this journey, you know the heartbreak, the manipulation, and the emotional toll this family's story has taken. And if you're new here, you've just stepped into one of the most explosive moments in Sister Wives history. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's unpack exactly how this moment came to be. Because this wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a reckoning. A moment where the quiet wife who once stood in Kody's shadow finally stepped into the light, not just for herself, but for every voice he tried to silence. And while the exact numbers would make jaws drop, the real story here was the power shift that no one, not even Kody, saw coming. From the moment Robyn entered the picture on Sister Wives, longtime viewers could see the subtle, and then not so subtle, shift in Kody's priorities. In those early episodes, Kody's time, energy, and resources started funneling in one direction. What was once a somewhat balanced, if strained, arrangement between the wives began tilting heavily toward Robyn. Trips, gifts, illegal marriage, and eventually the consolidation of finances. It all pointed to a clear pattern. Robyn was not just Kody's fourth wife, she was becoming his primary household. We watched over the seasons as this favoritism bled into every corner of the family dynamic. Christine, who had already been vocal about her unmet needs, reached her breaking point in season 17, walking away from decades of emotional neglect. Her departure was a seismic moment, proof that Kody's control wasn't unshakable. But for Janelle, the situation was more complicated. She'd invested not just years, but her own financial future into this family structure. She didn't have the same clean exit as Christine, not with land tied up in Coyote Pass, unresolved house plans, and shared accounts she couldn't freely access. The land dispute became the perfect storm. We saw Janelle in that unforgettable scene, standing her ground as Kody pressed her to make choices that only benefited his vision. He spoke about family unity, but the reality, as viewers could see, was that his unity always seemed to center around Robyn's comfort. Janelle's frustration started showing more openly, in her face, in her tone. When I saw that episode where she sat back, arms crossed, looking completely done with his excuses, I felt it in my gut. It was the face of a woman who'd been patient for far too long. And then there was the issue of shared funds. Over and over, we heard Kody speak about our money when it came to obligations that served his plans, yet suddenly, access seemed murky when Janelle needed resources. Meanwhile, Robyn's home, a massive, well-furnished space, stood in stark contrast to the unfinished dreams Janelle had been holding onto for years. Christine's role in this chapter can't be overstated. Having already broken free, she became both a confidant and an example for Janelle. We saw their conversations, their laughs, their moments of honesty. Christine didn't push Janelle, but her presence was a constant reminder. There was life and power outside of Kody's control. By the time we reached the most recent seasons, the tension had been building like a pressure cooker. Every land meeting, every conversation about money, every holiday where Kody's absence was glaring, it was all stacking up. And when you've spent decades watching someone bend the rules for one person while holding the rest to a harsher standard, there comes a day when you can't stay quiet anymore. For Janelle, that day was coming. And court was where she would finally speak her truth. We all knew Janelle had a strong backbone. She's the practical one, the one who always seemed to keep the family's long-term goals on track. But in the more recent Sister Wives seasons, that quiet practicality started giving way to something else, raw frustration. One of the clearest cracks in the facade came during those tense conversations about Coyote Pass. Janelle had been the most committed to making that dream a reality. She'd talked about building, about finally having a space of her own. But time after time, Kody stalled, shifting priorities, coming up with reasons why it couldn't happen yet. On screen, you could see her patience wearing thin, especially when she realized her financial contributions were essentially locked into that land, with no clear plan to ever let her use it. Then came the RV chapter, a storyline that was meant to be empowering for Janelle, but instead revealed just how unsupported she truly was. We watched her excitedly show Kody the RV, explaining how it was the most affordable way for her to live on the property and take control of her own housing. But instead of encouragement, Kody gave her excuses, criticisms, and warnings about how hard it would be. He made it clear he wasn't going to lift a finger to help her make it work. That scene hit hard, because here was a woman trying to adapt, to be resourceful. And the man who had pledged to be her part treated her plans like an inconvenience. Financially, the gap between Janelle's situation and Robyn's could not have been more glaring. Robyn, as Kody's only legal wife, had access to loans, assets, and protections that Janelle could only dream of. We saw it in Robyn's home, spacious, fully furnished, with every comfort taken care of, while Janelle was piecing together a living situation that left her vulnerable. On camera, the contrast was impossible to ignore. One of the most telling moments came when Janelle finally said, point blank, that she didn't feel like Kody was treating her as an equal partner, especially when it came to money. Her voice didn't shake. She didn't yell. But it was the kind of calm clarity that comes when you've been pushed past your limit. Years of being dismissed, told to just trust the process, and watching Robyn enjoy full financial security while she bore all the risk. It had all built to this moment. By then, it wasn't just about a house or the land or even the RV. It was about being heard, being respected, and having control over her own future. And when those things weren't given willingly, Janelle made the choice to take them, through legal action, if that's what it required. The courtroom wasn't flashy or dramatic in the Hollywood sense, no shouting matches or pounding fists. But for those who had followed the Sister Wives saga, it felt like the culmination of over a decade of quiet battles. The air was thick with the kind of tension you can't fake. Every shuffle of papers, every click of a pen seemed amplified. Janelle sat at the witness table with the same calm determination viewers had seen on TLC. She wasn't here to sling insults. She was here with facts. Methodically, she laid out years of financial records, bank transfers, joint account statements, and documents showing her contributions toward Coyote Pass and family expenses. She explained how, despite paying into the shared pot, she had little to no access to those funds when she needed them. The numbers told a story that words alone couldn't. Her money had been pooled into family investments that ultimately secured Robyn's home and lifestyle, not her own. Then Christine took the stand. If Janelle's testimony was a ledger, Christine's was the human cost behind it. She spoke about her own departure from the family, recounting how similar financial roadblocks and emotional neglect had pushed her to leave. She connected the dots, showing the pattern of Kody's choices and how they left both women vulnerable. Her voice caught at times, but her conviction never wavered. It wasn't just her story she was telling. It was validation of Janelle's. Kody, when it was his turn, leaned on charm and explanation. He spoke about family unity, about decisions made for the greater good, and about his belief that everyone had benefited equally. But under questioning, those claims stumbled. The paper trail didn't match the picture he was painting. The judge listened carefully, asking pointed questions about account access, decision-making authority, and legal ownership of properties. Every time Kody tried to circle back to emotional reasoning, the judge redirected him to the numbers. By the time closing statements began, the room was silent, not because the case was over, but because everyone present could feel the weight of what was about to happen. Decades of reality TV drama had been distilled into hard evidence, heartfelt testimony, and a decision that would change the Brown family forever. When the judge returned with the decision, the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. The words were measured, formal, but the number hit like a thunderclap. $415,000. That was the amount Kody was ordered to pay Janelle, restitution for years of financial imbalance backed by documented proof. For a moment, Kody just sat there, blinking as though the verdict hadn't quite landed. His usual confidence, the persuasive hand, gestures, the half smiles, evaporated. He leaned back in his chair, jaw tightening, eyes darting toward his attorney as if searching for a way to undo what had just been said. But there was no out. The decision was final. Janelle didn't cry, didn't make a scene. She closed her eyes for a brief second, exhaling in a way that seemed to release years of pent-up frustration. The relief wasn't loud, but it was powerful. The kind that comes when you know you've been heard and believed. Christine, seated just behind her, reached forward and squeezed her shoulder, smiling with pride. It was the quiet, unshakable solidarity of two women who had endured the same storm and finally seen the tide turn. Outside the courtroom, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Within minutes, hashtags like #JusticeForJanelle and #TeamChristine were trending. Fans shared screenshots from old Sister Wives episodes, moments where Janelle had clearly been pushed aside financially or emotionally, now reframed in the light of this ruling. People posted messages calling her an inspiration, a class act, and proof that walking away from control is possible. Christine was praised for her courage in testifying, with many crediting her for helping pave the way for Janelle's victory. But this moment was about more than $415,000. That number represented the tangible proof of something viewers had sensed for years. The uneven, often invisible power dynamics that had kept Kody in control. For Janelle, it wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming the freedom to make her own choices without financial strings attached. As they left the courthouse, Janelle walked out with Christine at her side, both smiling, not in triumph over someone else's downfall, but in the quiet knowledge that they had finally broken free from a system that had worked against them for too long. This wasn't just a verdict. It was a turning point for them, for the Brown family, and for everyone watching who'd ever wondered if standing up for yourself was worth the fight. For years, Sister Wives has been framed around Kody Brown's vision, a man at the center navigating the needs, dreams, and conflicts of multiple wives. But this verdict cracked that image wide open. For the first time in a very public and undeniable way, the balance of power shifted. No longer was Kody the unquestioned head of the family. Instead, the spotlight shone on Janelle's resolve and Christine's solidarity, two women who had stepped out from under that shadow and refused to be silent. This wasn't just a legal win. It was a rewriting of the show's entire dynamic. The wives' stories are no longer just chapters orbiting around Kody's choices. They are their own full narratives, with agency, grit, and independence at the center. For Mary, this moment had to resonate deeply. She's been on her own journey of separation and reevaluation, often hinting at feelings of being sidelined or misunderstood. And for Robyn, the wife who has often been painted as the beneficiary of Kody's favoritism, the verdict only deepens the questions about fairness, transparency, and trust within their shared history. Even if she never addresses it publicly, the conversation among fans will keep circling back to how the money, loyalty, and attention were distributed. For viewers, this trial shattered the carefully curated image of Kody as the steady leader holding a plural family together. The courtroom painted a different portrait, one of a man confronted with receipts, testimony, and consequences. Leadership isn't about control, it's about responsibility, and this case showed what happens when that responsibility is neglected. Speaking as a fan and commentator, I can't overstate the courage it took for Janelle to go this far. It's one thing to walk away from a decades-long marriage, especially one under the public microscope. It's another to face the emotional toll, financial costs, and potential backlash of challenging someone in court. Someone who once held such deep influence over your life. This wasn't about revenge. This was about truth, accountability, and reclaiming her voice. And that's the legacy of this moment. It's proof that walking away from unhealthy dynamics doesn't have to mean walking away quietly. You can demand fairness. You can insist on being treated as an equal. You can set a precedent that others, inside or outside the Brown family, can follow. So as we close this chapter, I want to thank you for being here, for watching, and for caring about these stories that are more than just reality TV. They're about real people navigating complicated relationships, power struggles, and the fight for self-respect. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the deep dives and updates we'll continue to bring you. And please share your thoughts in the comments. What does this verdict mean to you? Do you think it will change how Kody is seen or how the wives choose to live their lives moving forward? Your voices matter, just like Janelle's did in that courtroom.